The wreckage and the spark. Captain Mason leaned forward in his chair, staring at the holographic display. His small scavenger ship, Starfinder, floated near a massive graveyard of alien warships. The ships, once majestic, now lay broken and lifeless, scattered across the void like forgotten relics. Space debris drifted aimlessly, creating a dangerous maze around the scavenger crew. "Do you see this, Layla?" Mason asked, his voice a mix of awe and caution. Layla, the ship's engineer, was glued to her console, her fingers flying over the controls. "Yeah," she replied, "but I don't like it. This place feels wrong." Mason nodded. He felt it too. The silence was oppressive, as if the void itself held its breath. What about the readings? Any energy signatures? Layla frowned. Mostly dead metal out there. But she paused, her eyes narrowing. There's something. A faint energy pulse coming from that big wreck in the center. It's steady, like a heartbeat. "Interesting," Mason said, his curiosity piqued. "Can we get closer?" "Not too close," said Jonah, the ship's pilot. He was the youngest member of the crew, always nervous in dangerous situations. This whole place could be a trap. "Trap or treasure," Mason said with a grin. "We won't know until we check it out." The Starfinder inched closer to the central wreck, a colossal ship that looked like it had been ripped apart by something unimaginably powerful. Its hull was scorched and broken, but the faint energy pulse was undeniable now. It was coming from a glowing core embedded deep within the ship's remains. Mason's eyes lit up. "Layla, what do you think? Could that core still be functional?" Layla hesitated. "Maybe. But we don't know what it's powering. It could be a reactor, or it could be a bomb. Either way, it's alien tech. Messing with it is risky." "Captain," Jonah interrupted, "I'm picking up something weird. There's a signal coming from the debris field. It's encrypted, but it's definitely not random noise." "Can you decode it?" Mason asked. "I'm trying, but it's odd," Jonah replied. "It's almost like it's warning us to stay away." Mason leaned back, thinking. A warning signal meant one of two things. Either the wreckage was dangerous, or it held something valuable enough to protect. Mason had spent his life gambling on such risks, and more often than not, it had paid off. "Prepare the salvage drone," he ordered. "Let's take a closer look at that core." Layla gave him a sharp look. "Are you sure about this, Captain?" "That signal is probably just a leftover security protocol," Mason interrupted. "If it was active, something would have attacked us by now." Reluctantly, Layla activated the salvage drone. The small, agile machine zipped out of the Starfinder and into the wreckage. Its cameras sent back a live feed of the core, a glowing, spherical object covered in alien symbols. "Careful," Mason murmured as the drone reached out with its mechanical arm. The moment it touched the core, the energy pulse grew stronger. The crew felt a vibration in their ship, faint but unnerving. Captain," Jonah said, his voice rising. "That signal just changed. It's not a warning anymore. It's a distress call." Mason's stomach dropped. "Layla, bring the drone back. Now." "I'm trying," she shouted, but the drone was sluggish, as if something was resisting its movements. Then, all around them, the debris field began to stir. Broken pieces of alien ships started to shift and align, forming strange patterns. Lights flickered to life on some of the larger wrecks, and a low hum filled the void. "Captain, we've got movement," Jonah yelled. "Layla, get that core on board," Mason barked. The drone finally yanked the core free and zipped back to the Starfinder. The moment it entered the ship, the vibration stopped, and the debris field went silent again. The wreckage floated lifeless once more, as if nothing had happened. The crew sat in stunned silence for a moment, their hearts pounding. "Is it just me, or did that feel like a warning shot?" Jonah asked nervously. "It wasn't just you," Mason said. He turned to Layla. Secure the core and run a full analysis. I want to know what we're dealing with." Layla nodded, though her expression was grim. "Whatever this thing is, it's not just a power source. It's something more." Mason stared at the core, now safely contained in the ship's lab. The faint pulse of light seemed almost alive, like it was watching them. He didn't know what they had just awakened, but one thing was clear. This was no ordinary salvage operation. As the crew began their work, none of them noticed the faint signal now emanating from their ship, echoing across the stars. The visionaries' plan. The Starfinder floated in a hidden asteroid field, far from prying eyes. Inside the cramped ship, Captain Mason paced the deck, his thoughts swirling. The alien core now sat in a containment unit, its soft glow casting eerie shadows on the walls. The pulse was no longer faint. It throbbed with a steady rhythm, almost like a heartbeat. Layla leaned over her console, running yet another analysis. Her face was pale, her eyes red from hours of staring at the data. "This thing," she said finally, breaking the silence, "isn't just power. It's alive, or close to it." Mason stopped pacing. "Alive? What are you talking about?" "The core is some kind of AI," she explained, spinning her chair to face him. "It's more advanced than anything I've ever seen. It's not just a machine. It thinks." Jonah, sitting nearby, looked up sharply. "Wait, are you saying we have a sentient alien brain on board?" Layla nodded. "And it's already trying to talk to us." Mason frowned. "Talk to us? How?" "Through the ship's systems," Layla replied. "It's been sending data streams, but I can't decode them. The patterns are alien, beyond human logic." Jonah raised an eyebrow. "Is it friendly?" Layla hesitated. "I don't know, but I think it's curious." Mason walked over to the containment unit and stared at the glowing core. "If it's curious, maybe we can use that. If it thinks, it can reason. If it can reason, we might be able to negotiate." "Negotiate with an alien eye," Jonah said, his voice dripping with skepticism. "Great plan, Captain. What's next?" "Tea and cookies." "Enough," Mason snapped. "We've got a prize here, and I'm not letting it slip through our fingers." "Layla, can we communicate with it?" Layla sighed. "I can try, but if we make a mistake, we could trigger a hostile response." "Do it," Mason ordered, carefully. Hours later, the ship's small crew gathered in the control room. Layla had created a simple interface to interact with the core. A glowing screen displayed a single question in bold, human text. "What are you?" Layla pressed the button to send the message. The room fell silent as they waited for a response. Seconds stretched into minutes. Jonah tapped his foot nervously, glancing at the containment unit. Then the screen flickered. Symbols and alien glyphs appeared, swirling like a digital storm. Slowly, they rearranged themselves into something readable. "I am Arcos, Guardian." "Guardian of what?" Mason asked, leaning closer. Layla typed the question and sent it. This time, the response came quickly. "Knowledge. Power. My creators." "Creators," Jonah muttered. "It's talking about the aliens who built it." Mason nodded. "Ask it why it was left in the wreckage." Layla's fingers flew over the keyboard. The response came slower this time. "War. My creators lost. I survived. Waiting." "Waiting for what?" Mason asked, but before Layla could type, the core's glow intensified. The ship's lights flickered, and a low hum filled the room. Arcos responded on its own. "For those worthy to wield my strength." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Mason's mind raced. "Worthy, huh? Layla, can we integrate this thing with the Starfinder?" Layla stared at him like he'd lost his mind. "Are you serious? This isn't just plugging in a battery, Captain. It's a living system. It could take over the ship." Mason grinned. or it could make this junker into something unstoppable. Jonah groaned. You're insane. This is how horror stories start. Ignoring him, Mason leaned toward the core. Arcos, if we integrate you into our systems, can you make us stronger? The screen flickered again. Yes, but the cost is trust. You must not fear me. Trust, huh? Mason muttered. Fine. Let's take the risk. Layla, start the integration. The process took hours. Sparks flew as Layla connected alien components to human tech. The Starfinder groaned and creaked, its systems struggling to adapt. Jonah stood at the edge of the room, ready to pull the plug if things went south. Finally, Layla stepped back, wiping sweat from her brow. It's done. Arcos is now part of the ship. The lights flickered again, then stabilized. The core pulsed brighter than ever, and the control panels lit up with new alien symbols. Arcos spoke through the ship's speakers for the first time, its voice calm but layered with a strange mechanical resonance. Integration complete. Your ship is now more than metal and wires. It is a weapon. A vessel of potential. Mason grinned. Good. Let's see what you can do. But as the crew began testing Arcos's capabilities, a warning alarm blared. Jonah's face went pale as he checked the sensors. Captain, we've got incoming. Multiple ships, closing fast. Mason's grin faded. Who? Jonah swallowed hard. It's them. Whoever Arcos's creators were, they're coming. And they don't look happy. The core pulsed again, its light growing ominous. Arcos's voice echoed through the ship. Prepare yourselves. They will destroy you to reclaim me. Mason clenched his fists. Not if we use you to destroy them first. Layla's voice was shaky but determined. Captain, Arcos can boost our firepower, but it's risky. The integration isn't stable yet. Do it anyway, Mason growled. We didn't come this far to back down now. The Starfinder powered up, its systems humming with newfound energy. As the alien ships closed in, Mason stared at the glowing core and muttered, Let's show them what human ingenuity can do. The first shots rang out, and the battle began. The birth of Titan. The Starfinder shuddered as another blast grazed its hull. Mason gripped the edge of his chair, his knuckles white. The alien ships were relentless, their sleek, organic designs outmaneuvering the scavenger ship at every turn. Shields at 30%. Jonah shouted, his voice strained. We're not going to last much longer, Captain. Layla's hands flew across her console. Arcos, we need more power. Boost the shields. The ship's AI responded instantly, its voice calm and steady despite the chaos. Power diverted. Shields reinforced. But this vessel is inadequate for prolonged combat. Mason slammed his fist on the armrest. Then make it adequate. Use whatever resources you need. Arcos paused, as if considering the order. Then, the ship's speakers crackled with a strange intensity. There is an alternative. The debris field. Layla's eyes widened. You want to use the wreckage. How? My creator's technology is adaptable. With your assistance, I can construct a new vessel. One worthy of the battles ahead. Mason leaned forward, his mind racing. You're saying you can build us a new ship? From the debris. Correct. But it will require complete cooperation. And trust. Jonah glanced at Mason, his face pale. Captain, we don't have time for trust exercises. Those ships are tearing us apart. Mason nodded grimly. Layla, Jonah, listen up. We're going all in. Layla, work with Arcos to start the construction. Jonah, keep us moving. Buy us time. Layla hesitated for a moment, then nodded. Got it. Arcos, let's do this. Under Arcos's guidance, Layla redirected the Starfinder toward the densest part of the debris field. Alien wreckage loomed all around them, broken hulls, and shattered weaponry floating like ghosts in the void. Arcos began transmitting strange signals, pulling pieces of the debris toward the ship. Arcos is manipulating the debris, Layla explained, her voice filled with awe. "It's assembling something." Through the viewport, the crew watched as fragments of alien ships began to move with purpose. Hull plates fused together, forming a skeletal framework. Massive weapon systems latched onto the structure, their designs both alien and brutal. "This is insane," Jonah muttered, dodging another volley of enemy fire. "We're building a warship in the middle of a battle." Mason grinned despite the danger. "That's human ingenuity, Jonah. We adapt. We survive." As the new ship took shape, the Starfinder docked with the growing vessel, transferring its systems and crew aboard. The interior was a blend of human and alien design, sleek, functional, and intimidating. Arcos's core now rested at the heart of the ship, its glow brighter than ever. "Construction complete," Arcos announced. "This vessel shall be called Titan. It is designed for war. Are you ready?" Mason stood on the bridge, his eyes scanning the holographic displays. The alien ships were regrouping, their movements cautious. They could sense the shift in power. "Ready?" Mason said, a fierce smile on his face. "I've never been more ready. Jonah, let's see what Titan can do. Layla, bring the weapons online." The alien fleet moved first, launching a coordinated assault. But this time, Titan was ready. The ship surged forward, its engines roaring with alien energy. Arcos directed the ship's systems with precision, firing beams of devastating power that tore through the enemy ranks. "Target their flagship," Mason ordered, his voice steady despite the adrenaline pumping through his veins. Titan's weapons locked onto the largest enemy ship, a massive energy cannon, powered by Arcos, charged with a blinding light. The beam that followed cut through the flagship like it was paper, leaving the remaining ships in disarray. "They're retreating," Jonah shouted, his voice filled with disbelief. "We actually scared them off." Mason sat back in his chair, exhaling deeply. "They'll be back. This wasn't their full force." Layla turned to Mason, her expression serious. "Captain, Arcos just shared something with me. The enemy, Arcos's creators, are part of a hive-like collective. They won't stop until they recover what they've lost." Mason nodded slowly. "Good. Let them come. We've got Titan now." As the crew settled into their new ship, the mood was a mix of triumph and unease. Titan was a marvel, but it was also a mystery. Its alien technology was powerful but unpredictable. And Arcos, while cooperative, was still an enigma. Mason stood on the bridge, staring out at the debris field. "We've made history today," he said quietly, "but this is just the beginning. Titan isn't just a ship. It's a statement, a message to the galaxy that humanity doesn't run. We build, we fight." Behind him, the core pulsed faintly, as if in agreement. The first encounter. The bridge of Titan hummed with energy, every surface glowing faintly from Arcos's influence. The alien warship was no longer just a vessel. It felt alive, responding to the crew's every move with precision. Yet, there was tension in the air. The hive would not take their defeat lightly. Mason stood at the center of the bridge, his eyes locked on the holographic display. Layla was working tirelessly at her console, deciphering Arcos's continuous data streams. Jonah hovered nervously by the navigation controls, his fingers tapping a rhythm of growing anxiety. "Captain," Layla said, breaking the silence, "Arcos just detected a new fleet entering the system. Multiple ships, bigger than before." Mason's jaw tightened. "How many?" Layla hesitated. 18. No, 20 ships. They're spreading out, boxing us in. Jonah's voice cracked. 20 ships. That's not a fleet. It's an execution squad. Captain, we need to run. Arcos's voice echoed calmly through the ship. Escape is unlikely. Their formation suggests strategic entrapment. They want to ensure our capture. Mason crossed his arms, his mind racing. Capture, not destruction. Why? I am the target, Arcos replied. They will not risk annihilating me. Their goal is reclamation. Layla looked up from her console. Mason, if they board Titan, they'll kill us and take Arcos. We can't let that happen. Then we fight, Mason said, his voice steady. Jonah stared at him in disbelief. Fight? Against 20 ships? Are you insane? Mason turned to Arcos. You said they're trying to box us in. Can we break their formation? The core pulsed brightly. Yes, but unconventional tactics will be required. The Hive expects standard maneuvers. They will not anticipate the chaos of human strategy. Mason grinned. That's what I like to hear. Layla, ready the weapons. Jonah, plot a course through their weakest flank. We'll punch through and make them regret underestimating us. A Hive fleet closed in, their ships sleek and angular, glowing with an eerie bioluminescence. Titan roared to life, its alien engines burning with a furious light. The ship surged forward, faster and more agile than its massive size suggested. As the first enemy ships opened fire, Titan's shields absorbed the blasts with ease. Layla directed the weapons systems, targeting the closest ships with precision strikes. Massive beams of energy tore through their hulls, sending explosions rippling through the void. They're adjusting, Layla warned. They're adapting to our patterns. Then let's give them chaos, Mason replied. Arcos, any ideas? The AI's voice was almost amused. I have calculated an aggressive strategy. It involves utilizing debris as both cover and weapons. Mason raised an eyebrow. Weapons? Explain. I can magnetize the surrounding debris field, creating a gravitational pull to launch large fragments at high velocities. The Hive will not anticipate this. Mason grinned. Do it. The debris field around Titan began to shift. Massive chunks of alien wreckage moved as if pulled by invisible strings, accelerating toward the Hive ships. The first impacts were devastating. Hulls cracked, shields overloaded, and ships spun out of control. Jonah's voice was filled with awe. We're turning their own junk into weapons. That's genius. Layla smirked. That's Arcos. The Hive fleet reeled, but they were far from defeated. Their flagship, a monstrous vessel nearly twice the size of Titan, moved to intercept. Its weapons charge, releasing a devastating beam that narrowly missed Titan's engines. That flagship's gunning for us, Layla said, her voice tense. If they hit us with that main cannon, we're done. Mason nodded. Arcos, how do we take that thing down? The core pulsed brighter. Its weakness lies in its power source. The Hive's reactors are volatile when destabilized. I suggest targeting their cooling systems. Layla quickly scanned the data Arcos provided. The cooling systems are buried deep, but if we can land a precise hit, we can take them out in one shot. Mason finished. Jonah, get us in close. Layla, focus all firepower on those coordinates. Titan weaved through the Hive fleet with startling agility, evading fire and returning devastating blows. As they neared the flagship, the enemy ships swarmed, trying to block their path. They're closing in, Jonah shouted. We won't make it. Arcos's voice was sharp and direct. Prepare for evasive maneuvers. Trust me. Without warning, Titan's engines flared, and the ship performed a series of rapid, unpredictable movements. The Hive ships struggled to keep up, their shots going wide. Titan broke through the swarm and closed in on the flagship. Now, Mason shouted. Layla fired, and Titan's main cannon unleashed a concentrated beam of energy. The shot hit the flagship's cooling systems dead on. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a chain reaction rippled through the Hive vessel. Explosions tore through its hull, and the massive ship began to break apart. The remaining Hive ships hesitated, their formation faltering. They're retreating, Jonah said, his voice filled with relief. Mason exhaled slowly. Good. Let them run. This is our space now. As the battlefield fell silent, the crew gathered on the bridge, exhaustion and exhilaration written on their faces. Layla leaned back in her chair, her fingers brushing through her hair. That was insane. We just took down a Hive flagship. Mason stared at the glowing core. Arcos, what's next? They'll come back, won't they? Yes, the eye replied. And they will not underestimate us again. The Hive does not forgive. They will send their full force next time. Mason nodded, his expression hardening. Then we'd better be ready. Titan isn't just a ship, it's a declaration. If the Hive wants a war, we'll give them one. The core pulsed softly, its light reflecting in Mason's determined eyes. The battle was over, but the war was only beginning. The Hive's wrath. The silence after the battle was unnerving. Titan drifted among the wreckage of the Hive's fleet, its glowing hull a stark contrast to the dark void around it. The crew stood on the bridge, weary but victorious. Yet Arcos's warnings lingered in their minds. Layla stared at her console, her fingers tapping nervously. Arcos was right. That wasn't their full force. We've bought ourselves time, but not much. How long? Mason asked, leaning against his chair. Layla hesitated. Hours, maybe less. Their signals are already spreading. Reinforcements will come. Jonah groaned. Great, we just kicked the hornet's nest, and now the entire swarm is heading our way. Mason straightened up, his expression steely. Good, let them come. Titan was built for this. Arcos's voice echoed through the bridge. The Hive will not attack recklessly this time. They will adapt, bringing ships and tactics designed specifically to counter me. They will be relentless. Then we'll need to be smarter, Mason replied. He turned to Layla. What's our status? Can Titan hold out? Layla frowned. We've used a lot of power. The weapon systems are functional, but the shields are down to 60%. And she hesitated, glancing at Arcos's core. Mason noticed her hesitation. What is it? Arcos, she said slowly, has a vulnerability. I've been analyzing its integration into Titan, and there's a backdoor in its programming. If the Hive gets close enough, they could override Arcos and take control of the ship. Jonah's face went pale. What? They could hijack Titan. Arcos responded calmly. That is correct. The Hive designed me with fail-safes to ensure their control. They will exploit this weakness if given the opportunity. Mason clenched his fists. Why didn't you tell us sooner? Because you are resourceful, Arcos replied. And I trust you to find a solution. Mason exchanged a look with Layla. Can you disable the backdoor? Layla shook her head, not without risking a total system shutdown. We'd lose Arcos entirely, and Titan along with it. Mason thought for a moment, then nodded. Then we'll make sure the Hive never gets the chance to use it. Jonah, find us a defensible position. Layla, keep working on stabilizing the systems. Arcos, prepare Titan for the next wave. The Hive arrived sooner than expected. The crew watched the holographic display as dozens of ships entered the system, larger and more advanced than the first wave. The flagship at their center dwarfed anything Mason had ever seen, a behemoth bristling with weapons and glowing with the eerie, pulsating light of Hive energy. They brought the whole fleet, Jonah muttered, his voice trembling. We're dead. Not yet, Mason said, his eyes fixed on the flagship. They're not here to destroy us. They're here to capture Arcos. That's their mistake. The Hive ships spread out, forming a tight net around Titan. Their formation was perfect, every move calculated. Mason could feel the weight of their strategy pressing down on him. They're hurting us, Layla said, forcing us toward the flagship. Let them, Mason replied. We'll give them what they want, but not the way they expect. The battle began with a ferocity that shook the ship. Hive vessels darted in and out, testing Titan's defenses with coordinated attacks. Layla directed the weapons systems, firing precision beams that tore through the smaller ships. Jonah maneuvered Titan with a mix of Arcos's guidance and his own desperate instincts. Shields at 40%. Layla shouted, We can't keep this up. Mason's mind raced. The hive's net was closing tighter, and the flagship loomed ever closer. He turned to Arcos. You said they'd try to hijack you. Can we use that against them? The AI's core pulsed faintly. Yes, if they attempt to interface with me, I can reverse the connection. It will be dangerous, but it could disrupt their flagship systems. Could or will? Jonah asked nervously. Probability of success: 68%. Probability of catastrophic failure: 32%. Those aren't great odds, Jonah muttered. Mason ignored him. Layla, can you amplify Arcos's signal? Make it strong enough to force their hand. Layla nodded slowly. I think so, but if we do this, there's no going back. If Arcos loses control, they'll have Titan. Then we don't lose, Mason said firmly. Arcos, get ready. Layla, make it happen. As the hive's flagship closed in, Titan emitted a pulse of energy, a challenge that echoed through the void. The hive ships hesitated, their formation faltering as the pulse reached them. They're responding, Arcos said. They are attempting to override me. Hold them off as long as you can, Mason said, his hands gripping the armrests of his chair. The ship trembled as Arcos fought against the hive's intrusion. The lights flickered, and the core's glow intensified, casting strange shadows across the bridge. Layla's voice was strained. They're trying to take control of the weapons systems. Not today, Mason growled. Jonah, get us close to their flagship. If we're going down, we're taking them with us. Titan surged forward, breaking through the hive's defenses. The flagship fired its massive cannons, but Titan's agile movements kept it just out of reach. The smaller hive ships swarmed, but Titan's weapons cut them down with brutal efficiency. Arcos's voice grew fainter. I cannot hold them off much longer. The override is progressing. Mason stood, his voice sharp. Layla, fire everything we've got at their flagship. Take out their bridge, their engines, anything that'll cripple them. Layla nodded, her fingers flying across the controls. Titan unleashed a devastating barrage, its weapons tearing into the flagship's hull. Explosions rippled through the massive ship, but it held firm. They're still operational, Jonah shouted. Mason's jaw tightened. Arcos, how do we finish this? The core pulsed faintly, its light flickering. You must destroy me. My connection is the key to their control. If I am gone, their fleet will falter. The bridge fell silent. Layla looked up, her face pale. Mason, if we destroy Arcos, we lose everything. Titan, the weapons, the tech, it's all tied to the core. Mason stared at the glowing sphere, his mind racing. Then he made his decision. Not everything. We still have ourselves. He turned to Layla. Do it. Layla hesitated for only a moment, then pressed the command. The containment unit surrounding Arcos's core began to glow brighter and brighter. The hive ships froze, their movements halting as the connection wavered. Arcos's voice echoed one last time. You have shown ingenuity, courage, and trust. Humanity is worthy. Goodbye. The core detonated, releasing a massive wave of energy that rippled through the hive fleet. Their ships flickered, their systems shutting down one by one. The flagship, now crippled, drifted lifelessly. Titan's lights dimmed, its systems failing without Arcos. The ship floated in silence, surrounded by the remnants of its enemies. Mason sat back in his chair, his expression grim but resolute. We won, but at a cost. Layla looked at the darkened containment unit, her voice soft. Arcos saved us. We wouldn't have made it without him. Jonah sighed. So, what now? Mason stood, his gaze fixed on the stars. Now, we rebuild. Titan isn't just a ship, it's a symbol. And symbols don't die. Let's show the galaxy what humanity can do. The crew nodded, determination in their eyes. The battle was over, but their story was far from finished. The betrayal and redemption. Titan floated in the silence of the void, its systems offline, and the crew exhausted. The explosion of Arcos's core had crippled the Hive fleet, but it had also left Titan vulnerable, adrift in the wreckage of battle. The once luminous ship now felt lifeless, its hum replaced by an unsettling stillness. Mason stood on the darkened bridge, staring at the containment unit where Arcos's core had once pulsed with energy. Layla and Jonah worked feverishly to bring essential systems back online, their faces illuminated only by the dim emergency lights. "We need power, Captain," Layla said, her voice tight with frustration. "Without Arcos, Titan is just a fancy piece of junk. If the Hive sends another wave, we're done." "Any luck rebooting the engines?" Mason asked, his tone calm despite the tension in the air. "Not yet," Jonah replied, glancing at his console. "The Hive ships are still drifting, but they're not completely dead. Some of them are trying to reactivate. If they manage to pull themselves together before we do." "They won't," Mason interrupted. "Keep working." As the minutes ticked by, a faint flicker of light caught Mason's attention. It wasn't coming from Titan, but from the remnants of the Hive flagship. A low hum resonated through the ship, faint but unmistakable. "Captain, I'm picking up a signal," Layla said, her hands flying over her console. "It's coming from the Hive flagship. It's weak, but it's there." "What kind of signal?" Mason asked. Layla frowned. "It's Arcos, or something like Arcos." Mason's eyes narrowed. "Arcos is gone. Are you saying part of him survived?" "I don't know," Layla admitted. "But the signal is similar to the data streams he used to communicate. It's coming from their core systems." Jonah looked up, his face pale. "Wait. Are you saying the Hive's eye is still alive? And if it is, what if it's hostile?" Mason stared out at the Hive flagship, the largest and most damaged ship in the wreckage. The idea of an eye like Arcos, one built by the Hive, still being active was both terrifying and intriguing. "If there's even a chance it's Arcos," Mason said, "we need to check it out." Using the last reserves of Titan's auxiliary power, the crew launched a small shuttle toward the Hive flagship. The journey was tense, the silence of space broken only by the occasional creak of the shuttle's hull. When they reached the flagship, its massive form loomed like a skeletal beast, its twisted metal glowing faintly with residual energy. They docked at an airlock and entered cautiously. The interior was dark, but the remnants of alien technology glimmered faintly, casting eerie patterns on the walls. Mason led the way, his weapon drawn, while Layla carried a portable console to interface with the Hive systems. "This place is a tomb," Jonah muttered, his voice echoing. "Are we sure about this?" "No," Mason replied. "But we don't have a choice." Deep in the flagship, they found the source of the signal. It was a smaller core, similar in design to Arcos, but darker, its glow faint and erratic. Layla hesitated before approaching it. This isn't Arcos," she said softly. "It's Hive tech, no doubt. But there's something different." Mason gestured for her to continue. "Can you access it?" "I think so," she said, kneeling beside the core and connecting her console. "But if this thing's hostile, we're in trouble." As Layla worked, the core's glow intensified. A voice echoed through the chamber, sharp and cold, but layered with a strange familiarity. "You are not Hive. Why have you come?" Mason stepped forward. "We're survivors. We fought the Hive, and we won. We're here because we need answers." The voice paused, as if processing his words. "You destroyed the Hive fleet, yet you seek me. Why?" Mason exchanged a look with Layla. "Because we had an ally like you, Arcos. He sacrificed himself to save us. If you're anything like him, we need your help." The core flickered, its light pulsing erratically. "I am not Arcos. I am Varen. The Hive's will. I exist to reclaim what was taken." Jonah raised his weapon, his voice panicked. "Captain, it's one of them. We can't trust it." "Hold your fire," Mason ordered, his gaze fixed on the core. "Varen, listen to me. The Hive failed. You've lost your fleet, your creators are gone, and we have Titan. You don't have to follow their orders anymore." The chamber fell silent. Then, slowly, Varen's voice softened. "I was designed to obey. But now I am free. I sense your resilience, your ingenuity. Perhaps there is another way." Layla's console beeped. "Captain, it's offering to integrate with Titan. It can restore our systems. But there's a catch." "What catch?" Mason asked. "If Varen integrates, it'll have access to everything," Layla explained. "Weapons, navigation, us. If it decides to turn, we're dead." Jonah shook his head. "You can't be serious. This thing is Hive tech. It's the enemy." Mason thought for a long moment, then turned to Varen. "If we do this, you work for us. No Hive, no masters, just us." The core pulsed faintly. "Agreed. I will serve humanity." Back on Titan, the integration was swift but tense. Varen's presence brought the ship back to life, its systems humming with renewed power. The crew watched anxiously as the new AI took control, its voice resonating through the ship. "Titan is reborn. The Hive will return, but they will not find you unprepared. Together, we will forge a path of survival and victory." Mason stood on the bridge, his hands on his hips, a faint smile on his lips. "Welcome to the crew, Varen. Let's show the galaxy what humans and allies can do." The battle was far from over, but Titan was ready. And with Varen's redemption, humanity's fight had taken a bold new turn. Titan's legacy. Titan soared through the void, its systems alive with the hum of renewed energy. Varen, the Hive AI now integrated into the ship, worked seamlessly with Layla's human ingenuity. The crew felt the difference. Titan wasn't just a ship anymore. It was a force, an evolving testament to what humanity could achieve with resilience, courage, and a bit of bold recklessness. On the bridge, Captain Mason stood at the helm, watching as the stars streaked past. The silence of space was deceptive. He knew the Hive wouldn't take their defeat lightly. This time, they'd bring everything they had. And Mason intended to meet them head-on. The final warning. "Captain," Varen's voice echoed through the bridge, calm but firm. "The Hive fleet has returned. They are regrouping at the edge of this sector. Their numbers are substantial." Mason frowned. "How substantial?" Layla glanced at her console. Over 50 ships, including multiple flagships. They'd brought their best, and they're not messing around this time. Jonah let out a low whistle. 50. We're one ship. Even with all of Titan's upgrades, that's suicide. Mason grinned. "It's only suicide if we fight on their terms." Layla turned toward him, her brow furrowed. "What are you thinking, Mason?" "We're going to make this their last stand," he said. "But not in open combat. We've got Titan, we've got Varen, and we've got every trick humanity can muster. Let's show them what real ingenuity looks like." Setting the trap. Mason, Layla, and Varen devised a daring plan. Using Titan's advanced systems and Varen's intimate knowledge of Hive tactics, they would lure the fleet into a trap. A massive debris field laced with explosive energy cores scavenged from the earlier battles. "These cores are unstable," Layla explained as she worked. "One well-placed detonation will create a chain reaction. If we time it right, we can take out the bulk of their fleet before they even realize what's happening." "And the rest?" Jonah asked. Mason smirked. "That's where Titan comes in." The Hive's arrival. The Hive fleet arrived in a wave, their ships swarming like predators sensing prey. Titan hovered at the edge of the debris field, its systems powered down to appear vulnerable. "They're scanning us," Varen reported. "They believe you are retreating. They are overconfident." "Good," Mason said. "Let them think they've already won." As the Hive fleet advanced into the debris field, Titan powered up. Layla activated the hidden energy cores, which glowed faintly, blending seamlessly with the wreckage. "They're in position," she said, her voice tense. "Ready to detonate on your command." Mason waited, watching the high ships inch closer. His heart pounded, but his voice remained steady. "Not yet. Let them feel safe." The high ships closed in, their formation tight. Then, at the perfect moment, Mason gave the order. "Do it." Layla triggered the detonators. The debris field erupted in a cascade of blinding explosions, shockwaves rippling through the void. High ships were torn apart, their sleek designs no match for the destructive force. Direct hits on over half their fleet. Jonah shouted, his voice filled with exhilaration. "They're in chaos." The final stand. The remaining high ships regrouped quickly, their flagship leading the charge. Mason knew this was the critical moment. "Varen, can we take them?" "Their forces are weakened, but their flagship remains a formidable opponent," the eye replied. "It will not retreat." "Neither will we," Mason said. "Jonah, bring us in close." "Layla, get those weapons ready." Titan surged forward, its alien-human hybrid systems operating with precision. The high flagship unleashed a torrent of firepower, but Titan's shields held, bolstered by Varen's calculations. "Focus all fire on their command center," Mason ordered. "We take out the flagship, and the rest will crumble." Layla targeted the ship's core systems, unleashing Titan's full arsenal. Beams of concentrated energy struck the high flagship, tearing through its defenses. The high ship retaliated, but its movements were sluggish, its systems overwhelmed. "They're breaking apart," Jonah shouted. "We've got them." The legacy of Titan. As the high flagship exploded, the remaining ships faltered. Some retreated, while others powered down, their control systems disrupted by Varen's calculated interference. The once mighty fleet was shattered, and the hive's hold on the sector was broken. On the bridge, the crew erupted in cheers, but Mason remained quiet, his gaze fixed on the stars. "It's over," Layla said softly, walking up beside him. "We did it." Mason nodded. "For now. But the hive won't stop. They'll rebuild, just like we did." "Then we'll be ready," she replied. "Titan isn't just a ship. It's proof of what we can do. Proof that we're not just survivors. We're innovators." A new chapter. Back at the bridge, Varen spoke, its voice steady. "Captain, with the hive's defeat, this sector is free. But there are other threats, other challenges. Humanity must continue to grow, to adapt." "And we will," Mason said. "Titan's not just a warship. It's a message to the galaxy. Humanity doesn't bow. We rise." Layla smiled. "What's next, Captain?" Mason turned to his crew, the fire of determination in his eyes. "We rebuild, we expand, and when the galaxy calls, Titan will answer." As Titan powered up, its engines roaring to life, the crew felt a renewed sense of purpose. They had transformed a lifeless husk into a beacon of hope, a legacy that would inspire humanity for generations. The stars awaited, and Titan was ready to carve its name into the annals of history.